This is kind of difficult. Gotta be honest, I probably wouldn't be a wrestling fan if it were not for Hulk Hogan. And I just heard he passed today. But honestly, I haven't been a fan of Hulk Hogan for a long time now, and you probably know why. So now that he's passed, I don't really know how to feel. Of course, I feel sympathy for the people who loved him, but yes, it's a little complicated, and I'm going to tell you why. All right, so I grew up in Philly, a huge wrestling town where there was always wrestling going on, whether at the Civic Center or the ECW Arena or the Spectrum. And the very first memory that I tell so often of wrestling is me going to the Spectrum to watch WrestleMania 4 on closed circuit TV is one of the greatest memories of my life. Got a foam finger and I was rooting for Macho Man, my guy. But of course, his story was intertwined with the Hulkster. The Hulkster was larger than life. I mean, the muscles, the hair, the headbands, the shirts. I just wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of his, but I did love Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. I did buy every single wrestling album, which he usually was on the cover of. And yes, I did sing along pretty much every time Real American played. Saying your prayers, eating your vitamins, respecting your parents, hanging out with Mr. T. I mean, he was about all the things that I was about. And then the tape dropped. I'm not going to walk you through the tape and what was said on it because it's absolutely disgusting. I've had conversations with friends, family members, other wrestlers who also are disgusted by what they heard. Some of them are more forgiving than others, speaking about it being a situation where you're caught in a vulnerable environment and you're not necessarily able to control the narrative of what comes out. But in my opinion, what comes out in those vulnerable, private environments is usually the absolute truth. Worst of all, he never really apologized, and I never felt like he was held accountable for his actions. He didn't apologize to the people he hurt, which are mostly people like me, black wrestling fans. If there was a moment where he could have ever come on television or any sort of, even his own social media, and just said, hey, I said something very hurtful and I'm very sorry, that might have done something. I don't know, but he didn't. And that was his choice. WWE does what WWE does. They protected their brand. They cut him off. And then once the heat died down, they brought him back. And again, there was just no real rectifying of the situation. I heard that he was backstage talking to a lot of the talent. And when he did talk to the talent, he spoke to them and mainly told them to watch what you say because you never know, you could be getting recorded. There wasn't a don't say these things. It was a don't get caught saying these things, which is kind of a bad look. I hear people talking about separating the art from the artist, separating the man from the creations and things like that. But in this situation, and in wrestling in general, it's really difficult because the person you see on the screen literally looks like that person in real life. They might go by a different name, but in his case, he doesn't. And worse, the man actually keeps reminding you of exactly who he is. I'm not going to lie, wrestling has always had a race problem. I mean, since the beginning of time. There's been so many situations where people in marginalized groups have felt like they were being mocked, laughed at, disrespected as recently as last week. So this is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. But when you see someone you consider to be a hero perpetuating these things, it kind of hurts. Problem is, people have been penalized, cut, fired, blackballed, no pun intended, for much less infractions than this. But yet Hogan has been able to constantly come back and be paraded and celebrated, which is again making this difficult. So here I am, a wrestling fan, a black man who probably owes his fandom and love of pro wrestling to this man who literally hates me. Is it that difficult? Not really. I haven't said his name out loud in years. In fact, I find some other way to refer to him whenever I'm referring to him. So I'm not going to lie and say I'm heartbroken or anything like that. His contribution has certainly shaped the way I look at so many different things that I love in life. So this video isn't really telling you how to react to the passing of Hulk Hogan. It's just more or less me explaining why it's very difficult. It's for wrestling fans like me who felt torn when the news broke, who felt disappointed when the initial tape dropped, who didn't know if it was okay to feel anything at all. So I'll say, to close this out, rest in peace, Hulk Hogan. Condolences go out to anyone who loved him, anyone who will miss him. And I really hope that he had some time to do some internal soul searching and change for the better. But I just don't know. And rest in peace to the version of Hulk Hogan that made me fall in love with wrestling. Because the man who left Earth today, I don't know him.